What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm bringing you my weigh-in recap video for UFC Vegas 109, Dolidze versus Hernandez. So let's get right into it. Move myself up a little bit. Boom, there we go. First up, we got Cody Brundage versus Eryk McConico. Now, Cody Brundage came in looking a little tubby for this one. Eryk McConico, he looked good. He made weight. Both of these guys made weight, but Cody Brundage came in a little bit under, which was interesting. Yeah, he's fighting up, but I just wasn't really sure what to expect for this, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But this was the face-off, Eryk McConico, he almost had this like nonchalant type of vibe to him, which is really weird. Even in the weigh-ins, he just had this look like, man, I don't want to be here. I don't know. It was kind of weird. Gave me a weird feeling about it. Rubbed me the wrong way. With Cody Brundage, he seemed to be pretty calm, pretty relaxed, not too anything really, There's not a whole lot to read on him, but not a whole lot changes in terms of my opinions on this fight with the weigh-ins. It was interesting to see Cody come in a little bit under, but other than that, this doesn't really change a whole lot for me. But next up, we got Gabriella Fernandes versus Julija Stoliarenko. Now, I put it in asterisks with Julia's weight because she did end up making weight, but it just took her, I think, 2 times to make the weight. So, in the weigh-ins, Gabriella Fernandes, she looked a lot better. Julia, you could tell this weight cut was not easy on her, and she had a bit of a rough time with the weight cut, so she didn't look great, and as we can see too, it took her a little bit to make the weight. She had to strip down. She was really trying to make this weight by any means. So, but by the time they ended up doing the face-off, Julia definitely looked a little bit drained. Gabriella definitely had a much better weight cut, but it wasn't so terrible to the point where I'm like super influenced one way or the other. I'm already confident in Gabriella this week, and this just kind of helps my opinion. It's kind of like reinforces that opinion even more. So if anything, a little bit more confident in Gabriella Fernandes this weekend after seeing the weigh-ins. But next up, we got Uros versus Gilbert Urbina. This one was kind of weird. Now, Uros, he actually looks better in this picture than I think he did in a lot of the video. He had this like, I don't want to say he looked out of shape, but it just like, because he looks good in this photo. Like, he looks very cut, like in shape, but something about his vibe just kind of threw me off. And something about Gilbert Urbina, he seemed pretty locked in. He takes a lot of time off in between his fights. So it's hard to really tell how locked in mentally he is, how checked in he is, like how much he really wants to be in the UFC. But he seemed pretty damn dialed in for this fight, where Uros looked a little not as impressive. If you're comparing the two guys, and Uros looks a lot better on this than he did in the face-offs, but in the face-offs, Gilbert definitely has more muscle definition. He seems a little bit more toned, a little bit more in shape. The whole hand thing, throwing the hands up, very weird to me, very odd. That totally took me off guard. I wasn't expecting that one, but I can't see a whole lot really changes in this. I still had it as a trap in my last video, so I can't say this really influences me one way or another, but it was kind of interesting to see that funky stance from him. So anyway, next up we got Joselyne Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. Now both these girls ended up looking pretty decent on the scales. Joselyne Edwards, it was similar like before. She ended up making weight. It just took her a little bit longer. She had to do it multiple times. I think it was either 2 or 3 times it took her to do it. But she ended up making weight, so it's all good there. Priscila ended up showing up a pound under, which was interesting, but to each their own. But this was Joselyne too, yeah, when she had a tough time making the weight, as you can see. She had to strip down to make it. And yeah, this was the face-offs, but I can't really say this changed my opinion one way or another. I'm still leaning towards Joselyne this week, and I can't say this weigh-in really influenced my opinions at all. They both looked good. It took a little bit for Joselyne to make the weight, obviously, but they ended up making it, had a good face-off. Doesn't really change a whole lot for me. Now, next up, we got Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. Now, both of these guys made weight. They both looked pretty good on the scales. You can tell they both had to cut down a little bit. So this, I don't want to say it had a big effect on them, but you can tell they're definitely cutting down a little bit. And the face-off, all business. This doesn't really change my opinion at all for either guy. Kazama does look good. He looks in shape. Same with Elijah Smith. He looks in shape. He looks good. So both guys seemed like they had the weight cut go down pretty well. They don't seem too fatigued or anything. So this really doesn't impact my opinions at all. So next up, we got Julius Walker versus Rafael Cerqueira. Now, it was interesting to see Rafael Cerqueira. He ended up showing up at 203 pounds. So he came a little bit light. Julius Walker just came one over, but he's totally fine within the limits. But it was interesting because Rafael Cerqueira, when these guys matched up, size-wise, you could say Cerqueira looks even bigger than Julius Walker. So it was really interesting to see him show up at 203 pounds versus Julius Walker at 206. Just something that stood out to me. But in terms of their looks, they both seem ready to go. They both are cut, dialed in shape. They look great. They look ready to go. So this doesn't really influence any of my opinions or decisions with this fight in either way. But yeah, they both look ready to go. Julius Walker, I think he should win this fight. But Rafael Cerqueira, it did surprise me. He looks bigger than I thought he was going to look in this face-off. He looks really filled out, pretty wide compared to Julius Walker, but even being the lighter fighter in this one. So I don't know. This doesn't really change my opinion a lot because it doesn't seem like the weight cut had a huge toll on either guy. They both seem pretty good. So they both seem ready to go. So, like I said, it doesn't really change a whole lot. Now, next up, we got Eryk Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Both of these guys, they both made weight. Eryk Anders, he's looking really good for his age. Christian Leroy Duncan, he's looking really good too. These guys both lean down. They got the cut going. Not a whole lot for me, really. This didn't really change a whole lot. I still think Christian Leroy Duncan has everything going for him in this fight. He should be able to win this fight. Something about it, it almost gives me a Kevin Holland D-Rod type of feel. It's almost like PTSD, but you got, everything is leaning towards Christian Leroy Duncan in this fight. I get why he's a big favorite. He should be. Now, if he gets him out of there or not, I don't know, but from the face-offs, the one thing I wanted to point out here was that Eryk Anders was looking down the entire time. He did not want to make eye contact at all with Christian Leroy Duncan. CLD, he looked very calm, very relaxed, which you like to see from a fighter. You like to see him calm and cool and collected. That's exactly what he was. I personally don't like seeing fighters look down. It just gives me bad vibes. I don't like when they refuse to make eye contact. For whatever reason, I don't know what reason it is. I just personally don't like to see that. That's what Eryk Anders was definitely showing. So CLD looks very calm, very cool, and collected. If anything, it raises my confidence in him this week. So yeah, hopefully CLD gets it done. Now, next up, we got Miles Johns versus Gene Matsumoto. Both of these guys had interesting cuts, man. These guys were drained. I don't want to say drained because they seem fine, but they had to cut some weight for this one, man. You can tell their faces are just absolutely caving in. They had to cut a good amount of weight. So I don't want to say it was a bad weight cut for either guy, because it seemed about the same, honestly, in terms of the physical effects on the body and how they both look. It's almost identical. It's two versions of the same person and how they had the weight cut go. So you can see, especially too, in the face-offs, this was pretty crazy. Both of these guys had to cut a good amount of weight. You can just see it in their faces and their frames too. You can see the cutout in Gene's face, and see with Miles Johns, even his skull, the back of his head is shredded. I don't know. It's crazy. These guys both had to cut a good amount of weight. You can tell it had definitely had an effect on them, but they both seem pretty dialed in. They seem ready to go. They seemed alert. They didn't seem sickly or weak or dainty or anything like that. They both seem ready to go and locked in. So I can't say this really has any effect on my opinions of this fight either way, just because they both seem about the same. If either one of them is going to be struggling from this weight cut, the other one likely is too. So I can't say this really has any sort of impact on my opinion for this one. Anyway, next up, we got Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. Now, Andre Fili seemed like he was ready to go. He seemed locked in. He seemed dialed. He seemed like just another day in the office, which you like to see if you're rooting for him and backing him this weekend. But C-Rod had a tough cut, man. He did not look great on the scales. It took him a couple times. As you can see in the bottom two with the 146 with the asterisks, it took him a minute to be able to make that. So it's weird because he used to fight at a lower weight class. So I'm like, damn, I don't know how the hell C-Rod is struggling this much to make weight at 145. Just because he's not that big of a dude. I don't know if he just has some super dense muscles or whatever the hell is going on there. I don't know, but it's crazy to see him struggle this bad. So you can see C-Rod had a tough time, man. He had to strip down and barely make weight. So he did not look great. You can tell the weight cut had an effect on him. You could see it in his face and his reactions and his body language. You could tell that this was not fun for him. So this was the eventual face-off. I mean, Andre Fili looks ready to go, man. He looks locked in. He looks dialed in. I don't know. C-Rod has a kind of a calm demeanor to him, but something about his facial expressions kind of gave me, I don't know, kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit about C-Rod. You know, I don't know if he was a little bit just feeling down from the weight cut. You know, it could easily be that. You know, obviously the weight cut was difficult for him. So it could be that, because I don't want to say he looks like he feels nervous or anything. He just seemed a little off, but, you know, from the weight cut, he kind of seemed a little off on the scales too. So I assume it's a weight cut thing. I don't think he's terrified to fight Andre Fili or anything. I just think it was probably a weight cut thing. So it doesn't influence my opinion a ton, but considering he had such a harsh weight cut that really had a little bit of a toll on him physically, it lowers my confidence in C-Rod a little bit this week. So this one was noteworthy for me. But next up, we got Iasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. Both of these girls made weight. They both look great considering the age gap. I think it's 17 years or something. You wouldn't be able to tell, you know, just from guessing, just from looking at them, if you were a casual looking in and you had no idea who these people were. I don't think you'd guess 17 years. You know, they both look great, especially Angela Hill for her age. She looks great. Lucindo looks great too. They both cut weight really well. You know, it seemed like neither one of them had a rough time with the weight cut. So Lucindo looks like, I don't know, she looks like she packed on a little bit of muscle from what I can remember. You know, she is getting older and older. You know, she's only 23, so you got to figure she's probably going to get stronger and pack on some more muscle mass the older she gets. So I think she's filled out pretty well, especially with the weight cut. But you can see too, Angela Hill, it was pretty hilarious. You can kind of see, if I block in, she had that damn silicone thing, implant, whatever, that she forgot to take out before the weigh-ins. It was pretty damn funny. Glad she took it out, because what did she? Yeah, she was at 116. So yeah, you can see him in this picture too. It's pretty funny. But yeah, that was before she took him out, or after she took him out too. So if she had him in it, she probably would have been over. But it was kind of funny. Everyone was laughing in the video. It was pretty funny, but. Either way, she made weight. They both made weight. It was all good in the end. The face-off, you know, Lucindo seems ready to go, man. That's why, I was waiting for these weigh-ins because I've been so on the fence this week, and I'm going to talk about this at the very end of the video, too, with my confidence review and overview. But, you know, Lucindo looks ready to go. I don't want to say problem, but the one thing that's held me off of her recently has just been her lack of killer instinct, that I want to call it, you know, where she doesn't seem like she really is I don't know, not locked in. I don't know what the right word is, but that's been a major draw for me. But through these face-offs, man, she seemed to win this face-off. She seemed extremely calm, cool, collected, confident. She was mean mugging. That's something I've been waiting to see from her. So this gives me a little bit more confidence in her, and it's influenced my opinion on this fight a little bit, you know. So we'll talk about that at the end, but next up, we got Steve Erceg versus Odi Osbourne. Both of these guys made weight. You know, Steve Erceg, he kind of always has that look on his face. That's as Steve Erceg as you can be. Doesn't really stand out a ton to me. You know, Odi Osbourne showing up on short notice, but he still made 135. I guess they are fighting up a weight class, so, it is what it is. But in the face-off, you know, they were both smiling. They were both nice. Not a whole lot that really stood out to me about this. Obviously, you know, they both look fine. They look in shape. You know, Odi Osbourne does look wider, you know, he does seem to have a bit more muscle, and that is interesting to me. You know, I can't say it influences my opinion a ton, but you can see, you know, he fills out a little bit better at this weight class than I think Steve Erceg does. So if that's something you're considering, you know, I think that's a very small point, but something to consider in terms of making your picks. So next up, and finally, we got Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. You know, Anthony Hernandez, I'll start with him. He did not have a good weight cut. This was a tough one for him. He struggled to make weight. I think it took him 3 times to make weight. Whereas Roman Dolidze, he made weight. He was all business. And we're going to talk about the face-offs. But just off the weigh-ins alone, you know, just the weight cut itself, Roman Dolidze really slid right through like it was nothing. He looks great. He looks ready to go. It looks like he had no issue, no struggle at all with the weight cut. Whereas Anthony Hernandez, man, he seemed rough out there. It did not help my confidence, even though it was very little to begin with, but it did not help it for Anthony Hernandez this week. And we're going to get into this picture when this was him on the scales, when he had to strip down, and he had this 1,000-yard stare where it was man, he did not look like he was having a fun time. He did not look like he wanted to be there. And that is not the look you want to have on your fighter's face, especially for the guys that are throwing his money line in a bunch of parlays, minus 350, whatever the hell he's at. So this definitely worried me. You know, he did not look great. This was not an easy cut, not a good cut, especially going against the guy like Roman Dolidze, who's so big and powerful and strong and just has his way. That's not the dude I would want to have a bad weight cut if I was fighting Roman Dolidze. Like, that would not be the type of dude I'd want to have a bad weight cut. So anyway, this was him too. Oh yeah, this was him trying to make weight. I think for the third time it took him to finally make weight. So it was a struggle, but you know, shout out to Fluffy for making weight. You know, he ended up actually making weight. So shout out to him. You know, it was tough, but he manned up, did what he had to do, got it done. You know, kept going. I don't know what he was doing behind the scenes in terms of like a sauna or whatever the hell, I don't know, but he ended up making weight. So good for him. This was the face-off. This was like the final straw for me in terms of going back and forth. Roman Dolidze won this face-off. He won this face-off. It was not even close. Anthony Hernandez, he just looked timid and like shy and like it felt like a little brother against big brother. Like Roman Dolidze is just like standing there like absolutely stoic, stone cold, just like completely confident. Anthony Hernandez, this look on his face just summed it up. It was like, maybe it's the weight cut, you know, maybe it's not this, but he had this very, very bad body language in his face. He just seemed like, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way out of any weigh-in I've seen, at least this card, if not the last 2-3 cards. It was not a good look and did not give me any sort of confidence in Fluffy. Even though, you know, Fluffy's a beast, you know, and I can't say it's a huge impact, but this was a pretty bad showing between the weigh-ins itself and the face-offs. It makes me very less confident in Anthony Hernandez this week. So I wanted to point this out. This was the one weigh-in where it actually had a decent impact in terms of my opinion for this fight, but I think... All right, so anyway, we're going to go, I know this is leading into it too, but now after this one, this affects the my confidence levels, you know, in terms of how they changed from these weigh-ins. This was the original ranking from the last video. If you guys haven't seen it yet, make sure to go check it out. But where I kind of give you some more explanations for each one and my reasoning for each one. But so this was the original confidence breakdown. Now, this is how I felt after the weigh-in. So with Gabriella Fernandes, we'll just start from the top and break it down. From Gabriella Fernandes and Stoliarenko, my confidence in Gabriella Fernandes went up just a tad, just because Gabriella definitely seemed to have a good weight cut where everything went as planned, where Julia definitely struggled. You know, the weight cut was rough for her. You could tell she had to strip down. Took her, I think, 2 times to make weight, and she did not look great on the scales. The face-offs maybe looked a little better, but she still didn't look great in either way. And I was already confident enough in Gabriella to be able to win this fight, so this just gave me a little extra boost of confidence, so I had to include that hit there. And then in the medium confidence, you know, Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez, I have less confidence in Christian Rodriguez after seeing the weigh-ins. You know, he had a rough weight cut. It took him a while to be able to make weight, so that definitely can't help your confidence in this fight. You know, seeing him struggle like that, not looking great on the scales, or the face-offs too, he didn't look great, so that definitely gives me a little less confidence, especially considering that Fili showed up looking great. You know, weigh-ins, face-off, he seemed absolutely locked in and dialed, so lowers my confidence in that one a little bit. Brundage versus McConico, I can't say it changed it a ton, but at the same time, Brundage showed up a little bit under the weight where he could have been, and McConico almost maxed it out, or, I mean, I think he was, half pound under where he should have been? See it extra. He showed up heavier. It was like, I think 2.5 pounds heavier, 2 pounds heavier. McConico definitely seemed more filled in for the weight versus Cody Brundage. Seemed a little bit more tubby, a little bit more loose, a little bit more soft, whereas McConico seemed like he was making the weight, and he seemed still pretty muscular, lean, built. You know, like it seemed like he fills out more for this weight class, so I still think technically he's at a disadvantage. I think Cody Brundage has enough power and the experience to be able to hang, and he should be able to put McConico out. So that's why I have it as a medium confidence pick. But it's a Cody Brundage fight, man. Anything can happen. you never know what the hell is going to happen with the Cody Brundage fight. So still medium confidence, but this takes it down just a little bit. And then in my low confidence pick, with the Rome Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez, the weigh-ins and the face-offs totally rubbed me the wrong way. It was about as bad as like between the weigh-ins and the face-offs both going that poorly. It's not that often that it's that poor, at least in my opinion. So that lowers my confidence a ton in Anthony Hernandez. That did not look good in my eyes, at least. But we'll talk about that at the very end. But anyway, we got Lucindo versus Hill. This lowered my confidence a little bit too, just because, it's a multitude of things. Well, one, I saw Lucindo show that she kind of seemed to have more of that dog than she's had in the past. She gave off more confidence. She gave off more calm and collected vibe. And as she's growing up, she's going to put on some more muscle. She seemed to be really like filling up a little bit more in terms of like her arms were looking jacked. She seemed like she was widening out a little bit for the division for her size. So I think as she gets older and older too, she's going to be just like your muscles naturally mature too. And I think that's the more we see her, she's going to look better and better. And that was the thing too. I had low confidence in this one to begin with. And I know as of the last video, I have Hill picked, but we'll talk about that in the final breakdown. But this gave me a little less confidence just because they both looked good, but Lucindo really, I don't know, she seemed a little bit more dialed, a little more focused. And I can't say Angela Hill looked bad at all because she looked great. They both looked good. But this just took it down just a tad bit. I wanted to see how good Lucindo looked, and she impressed me. I think she looked really good. She looked better than I thought she might have looked. So that's why I brought it down a little bit in terms of the Angela Hill pick. And then finally, we got Brundage versus Urbina. It's already a trap. I already had it at the lowest spot possible, so I can't lower the ranking for this one. But, I just seen Gilbert Urbina, he seemed pretty locked in. He seemed dialed. He seemed ready to go in terms of his energy and his mentality and kind of like where he seemed with his body language and all. Like, he seemed very, very, like, engaged and very, like, he seemed like he was mentally here and he was ready to go. And he didn't seem like he had any doubts or worries or concerns or hesitations. He seemed very locked in. And Uros, he didn't really... I can't say he looked bad, but he just didn't look great on the scales. I think between the two of them, I think Gilbert Urbina definitely looked better on the scales, so lowered my confidence just a little bit in this, but I already have it as a trap, so it didn't go down all that much, obviously. But this is the final rankings, too, I wanted to show you guys. That's why I was kind of hovering around the Lucindo versus Hill thing. I'm switching the picks, man. I switched 2 picks after these weigh-ins. I guess we could go over the medium confidence first. In terms of the high confidence, nothing changed. So in terms of the medium confidence, I moved Walker versus Cerqueira just up a little bit, and I moved Fili versus Rodriguez down a little bit. It was kind of, I didn't intentionally move Walker versus Cerqueira up. It was just, I moved Fili versus Rodriguez down, so naturally it switched over, obviously. But yeah, I moved Fili and Rodriguez all the way to my least confident of the medium confidence picks just because of the weigh-ins. It's like, it was not a good look for C-Rod. He struggled to make weight, didn't look great in the face-offs, where Fili looked great. He looked dialed in, he looked ready to go. And I thought about it too, and I'm like, well, damn, like Fili's a recent father, maybe seeing him this dialed and locked in. I know he's had a long career and he's had his ups and downs, but, maybe it's that dad second wind. Maybe it's that dad strength, maybe it's that dad mentality that's locking him in. I don't know. I think there could be something out of here. Maybe it's just a conspiracy. Who knows? But between that and Christian Rodriguez not looking great on the scales, not having the best weight cut, lowers my confidence a little bit in that. So I moved him all the way down. And then for the low confidence pick, I'm flipping to Dolidze, man. I know everyone's on Fluffy this week. Like, just about everyone's on Fluffy, and I get it. I think if this fight extends later on into the fight, I think Fluffy probably does win. If this goes to a decision, I think he probably wins rounds 4 and 5 if it goes that long. But I think Dolidze has a chance, man. He looks so good, especially at 37. People are calling him washed. I think he looks the best he's ever looked, and I think he definitely has a chance. I think his best chance is probably, it's got to be an early finish, in maybe round 1 or 2 getting to finish, because we've seen Fluffy finish before, especially with this rough weight cut. He did not look good. He mentally didn't seem great. So I don't know. I was like, this was like almost like a coin toss for me, and especially considering the odds too. I'm like, the odds are so wide, almost over 3-1 dinner 4-1 favorite for Fluffy. I think people are sleeping on Dolidze. This was the weigh-ins and the face-offs. It was just the last little thing. I'm like, all right, you know what? I wanted to pick at least one dog on this card. It's so chalk heavy with all the big ass favorites on this card. And I knew too, I was like, all right, I think I'm going to flip from Angela Hill to Lucindo. So I was like, damn, I got to have at least one. I think Dolidze has a damn good shot to win this fight. I think it's got to be early, but at the same time, I think he can get it done. And obviously, like I said too, I'm flipping my pick from Angela Hill to Iasmin Lucindo. It's just, if you look at the stats, it's absolutely absurd. Because Lucindo fits into two statistics that really stood out to me. And I know you can't base everything on stats, but this is exactly how I treated the Neil Magny fight last week. I was like, yeah, I'm on the fence. I think it's very close. I was leaning Zaleski originally, but then I was like, damn, I looked at the stats and it was something like, I forget exactly what reach advantage Magny had. It was like 7 or 8 plus. It was whatever the category was. I forget exactly off the top of my head, but it was like a 60 something percent chance, 65 or 67 something, 60 plus percent chance with his reach advantage that he would win the fight. And I'm like, damn, I think this is so damn close that you got to factor in, okay, statistically, when fighters have this type of advantage, they're winning at a 60 plus percent win rate. The pick makes sense for me. Like, I'll go with that. If I'm on the fence, if I think it's a coin toss, I'll go with the statistics side, because all my other research has got me at pretty much a coin toss, I'll go with the stats. It's the same thing with this, because Lucindo falls into 2 categories where it's a statistic advantage. One, it's the age gap. And what was the, okay. One is the age gap, and 2, just her age in general. So the first one is fighters with an age gap of 6 or more years, I believe. Well, let me pull this up. I just want to be absolutely sure, because I had it right here. What was it? Okay, it was 6 per. Yeah, fighters with a 6 or more year age gap. When there's a 6 or higher, I guess, year age gap between fighters, the younger fighter wins more than 64% of the time, and that's 6 years. This fight is 17 years. That's one. So you got that statistic is 64% win rate. And then in the UFC, fighters that are under 25 years old, Lucindo is 23. So fighters that are under 25 years old, they have a win rate of over 65%. So I'm thinking, all right, there's the 64% plus win rate and 65% plus win rate for the 6-year age gap and being under 25. If I think this is a coin toss fight, like really, it's a pick'em in my eyes. I know the odds are different, but if that's how I'm seeing this, I'll let the stats make that call. It's the same thing with the Neil Magny fight. I'll do it with this. So I'm flipping to Lucindo, just because I'm going with the stats. So I wanted to explain that one. And yeah, so that's the only real difference here, I guess. We talked about the Walker Cerqueira, Fili Rodriguez, and I'm doing the pick flips on. I'm going with Dolidze and going with Lucindo. So other than that, it's about the same. It was pretty close in terms of the whole scale. Not a whole lot changed, because I had all these fights as low confidence ones, the ones I did pick flip on, and nothing changed too in terms of the medium confidence, just kind of their order. But I just wanted to go over that with you guys real quick before the fight. So anyway, guys, this does it for the weigh-in recap video. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got something useful from this video. And yeah, thank you guys so much for all the recent love and support on the videos. It's been awesome. I got my betting breakdown video coming out tomorrow, so make sure to watch that. If you haven't seen the locks and traps video I dropped yesterday, go check that out. And thank you guys for all the love and support on that video. It's been absolutely insane. I really appreciate it. It means a ton to me. And thank you for all the comments too. It makes me know what you guys like to see and want more of. So it's a huge, it's been awesome. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it a ton. And yeah, thank you guys so much once again for all the support. Like I said, I got the betting breakdown video dropping tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see y'all in the next one. So, peace.